Welcome to Reddit Realms, unwind with us by our digital campfire for Reddit's most captivating narratives. Tonight we're looking at True Off My Chest. For those new to our community, I bring you new Reddit stories every day to help you unwind, declutter your thoughts, or simply keep you company while you study. Before we start, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and which of today's stories resonated with you the most. So, pour yourself a comforting beverage, settle in, and let's immerse ourselves in today's adventures. I found my uncle's storage unit after he died, and I think he was keeping someone alive inside. My uncle Ben died in March. He wasn't the kind of man you'd expect to have a secret. He was a quiet, solitary guy who lived on the outskirts of town in a little one-story house that always smelled like pipe tobacco and lemon cleaner. No wife, no kids, just a few fishing trophies and a fridge full of beer that expired in 2019. When he passed, the lawyer said he'd left me personal effects and a key. I figured it was for the house or maybe a safe deposit box, but it was labeled "You store it, no you and my neen." I didn't even know he had a storage unit. I put it off for a few weeks, grief mixed with laziness, I guess, until last Friday. The facility was the kind of place that looks like nothing good ever comes out of it. Chain link fence, buzzing lights, office smelling like burnt coffee and despair. The manager gave me a clipboard to sign and said, "Haven't seen that guy in years, paid on time though, good tenant." Unit 119 was near the back, facing the tree line. I unlocked it, rolled the door up, and immediately noticed how cold it was inside. Not temperature cold, hospital cold. The air felt filtered, like I'd just opened a fridge. At first glance, it looked normal enough. Cardboard boxes, a few pieces of old furniture, a metal cabinet. But then I saw the far corner. There was a makeshift partition of plywood sheets, like he'd built a little room within the unit. And on one of the boards, written in red marker, "Do not open." You can guess what I did next. Inside the room was a recliner, a small fridge, a cot, and this is what made me step back, an IV stand. Not a hospital one exactly, but clearly repurposed from something medical. A saline bag, long dried, still hung from the hook. There were also jars, dozens of them, stacked on a metal shelf. Mason jars, each one labeled with a date. The newest was dated February 3rd, 2025, 6 weeks before he died. They were filled with what looked like water, but the bottom of each had a thin layer of white powder. I didn't touch anything. I just stared. My uncle was an auto mechanic, not a scientist. He didn't even own a computer. Then I noticed the sound, a faint hum. I traced it to the back of the cot, where an old generator sat half buried under blankets. It was still running. I unplugged it and the hum stopped, but something else started. A hiss. There was a vent in the wall, and for a few seconds after I shut the generator off, air came out of it. Warm, steady, like it was pressurized. That's when the smell hit. Metallic, sharp, the kind that sits in the back of your throat and doesn't leave. I stepped back, gagging. Something about it felt wrong, not dangerous, just wrong. There was a duffel bag on the floor beside the cot. Inside, old clothes, a flashlight, and a spiral notebook. Most of the pages were empty except for a few scattered entries written in neat block letters. Day 41, still sleeping most of the day. Day 42, more responsive, knows my name. Day 45, I think it's remembering, shouldn't have told it where it came from. The last entry was from February 2nd. I took pictures of everything, locked the unit, and drove straight to the police station. I told them the truth. My uncle died, left me a key, I found some weird medical setup, please go look. The officer at the front desk said they'd send someone out Monday. It was Friday, so I went home, tried to eat, failed, and just sat staring at the photos on my phone. The jars, the vent, that awful note, knows my name. The next morning, I woke up to a missed call from a blocked number. The voicemail was just 4 seconds of static, and then a voice whispering, "He said not to open it." I didn't tell the police about that part. Monday came, and they finally went to inspect the unit. They called me that afternoon. The officer sounded confused. He said there was no evidence of any recent activity. No generator, no cot, no jars, nothing. Just an empty room and some dust. I swore I had photos. I offered to show them. They said, sure, bring them in. But when I opened my phone, the pictures were gone. Not deleted, gone. No trace in the cloud, no recently deleted folder. I tried to show them the notebook, but when I opened it, all the pages were blank. Every single one. They probably think I'm losing it. Honestly, I'm starting to think that too. But then yesterday, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name printed neatly in block letters. Inside was a single photo, my uncle standing in front of the storage unit. The door's open behind him, and if you zoom in, you can just barely see something lying on the cot. Something small, human-shaped. On the back, in that same handwriting from the notebook. Day 46, it woke up. I haven't shown anyone yet. I don't know who to trust. I called the storage facility today, and the manager said Unit 119 hasn't existed in our system for years. I asked him if maybe it was renumbered. He said, nope, never had a 119. We skipped from 118 to 120. Always have. I still have the key. It's sitting on my desk right now. Brass, worn, stamped with 119 clear as day. And every night since I found that letter, I've been hearing a sound outside my apartment. A low mechanical hum, like a generator. It starts around midnight, lasts for maybe 30 seconds, and stops. Last night, I finally looked. There was a van parked across the street, no plates, windows tinted. The engine was running, the lights flicked off when I opened my curtains. I'm not going to that storage facility again. I don't care what's in there, or what my uncle was doing. But the thing that keeps me up at night is the voice on that voicemail, because the longer I think about it, the more I'm sure it wasn't my uncle's. It was mine. Update, 5 days later. I thought it was over. I turned the key into the police, bought new locks for my door, stayed with a friend. But yesterday, when I came back to grab some clothes, there was an envelope taped to my apartment door. No name this time, just a message written in red marker. It's still sleeping. Don't let them move it again. Inside the envelope was a USB drive. Against my better judgment, I plugged it into an old laptop that isn't connected to Wi-Fi. There was one video file, time-stamped February 3rd, 2025, the same date as the last jar label. The video was grainy, dark, filmed from the corner of the storage unit. You can see my uncle sitting beside the cot, reading the notebook. There's something lying under a sheet next to him. He looks up at the camera and says, "If you're watching this, it means I'm gone. Don't let them tell you it's a person. It's not. It remembers, but it's not." Then the camera tilts, like he's knocked it over, and for a split second you can see what's under the sheet. It looks like me. You only see the face, pale and still, but it's me. The same scar above my eyebrow, the same birthmark on my neck. The video ends there. I unplugged the drive, smashed it with a hammer, and flushed the pieces. But I can't stop thinking about something else. That night, the hum outside started again. I looked out my window, but the street was empty. Then I heard it. The faintest voice coming from somewhere near the trees. It said, Day 47. Sometimes what's left behind isn't meant to be found, and sometimes what's found isn't meant to be left behind. Next, a woman discovers that her late grandmother's diary isn't written in the past tense, and that the last entry is dated tomorrow. My grandmother's diary has entries dated for next week, and she's been dead for 12 years. When my mum passed away last winter, I was the one who ended up clearing out her house. I expected grief, sure, maybe a few tears over old photo albums or the smell of her perfume in the closet. I didn't expect to find my grandmother's handwriting again. She's been dead since 2013. Pancreatic cancer. I was 19 when we buried her. I remember the funeral vividly. The cold air, the priest's voice cracking, the way my mom clutched the rosary so hard her knuckles turned white. Grandma was the quiet matriarch type. Church on Sundays, crossword puzzles, garden full of hydrangeas. While going through boxes in the attic, I found a small wooden chest I'd never seen before. It had been wrapped in a quilt, taped shut. Inside was a single book, a worn, leather-bound diary with a brass clasp. The first page said in her cursive, Private, M.E., 2009. Her name was Margaret Elwood. There were dozens of entries, simple at first, notes about baking, church, her garden, how her neighbor's dog looked like it was planning something. Then, around late 2012, things started getting strange. The whispers came again tonight. I think it's the wind in the attic vents. He says the blue door only opens in dreams. I told him I don't dream anymore. December 8th. The mirror is wrong again. I look younger in it than I did yesterday. When I hit 2013, the year she died, the entries stopped in March. Her funeral was in April. The last thing she wrote was, "Tomorrow I will try to move the light again. If it works, I'll finally see him." I assumed him meant my grandfather. He died in the 80s. I almost closed the book there, but a few pages after that there was a blank section. Then, halfway through the emptiness, a new entry appeared. The date, October 29th, 2025. My stomach flipped. That's next week. The entry read, "The boy will find this soon. If the mirror stayed closed, I am sorry. I didn't mean to leave it unfinished. Tell him not to touch the attic wall when the clock strikes 3. I laughed out loud at first. Some part of me thought maybe my mum had added that as a joke. She had a weird sense of humor, but the ink was faded like the rest of the diary. The handwriting exactly the same as my grandmother's. I kept reading. The next entries were spaced days apart, all with future dates. They weren't predictions exactly, more like instructions. The second light means he's listening. Don't turn the page past this one unless you hear knocking. If you see the hydrangeas bloom twice, lock the basement door. I slammed the book shut. The air in the attic felt too still, too thick. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in messages from beyond. But my hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. When I came downstairs, I put the diary on the kitchen table and called my aunt, Grandma's other daughter. I told her about it, half laughing, half panicking. She went quiet for a long time and then said, "You shouldn't have opened that." I asked why. She said, "When Mum was dying, she kept talking about that damn book. She said she was writing the rest from the other side. We thought it was the morphine." I didn't sleep that night. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed to a text from an unknown number. The message just said, "The blue door opens in dreams." My throat went dry. I couldn't even reply. The next morning, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe my aunt texted me from a burner, or someone was pranking me. But the timing, the exact phrase from the diary, it didn't sit right. I decided to take photos of the diary, maybe get the ink dated somehow. But when I opened it again, there was another entry, same neat cursive, dated October 30th, 2025. He didn't listen. I told him not to touch the attic wall. The ink was wet. I threw the book across the room and sat there shaking. I could smell something faint, lilac, the same perfume Grandma used to wear. The logical part of my brain kept saying, "There's an explanation. Someone's messing with you. Maybe your aunt snuck in and wrote it." But the attic was locked. I checked the windows. Everything was sealed. That night I dreamed of a blue door. It wasn't a metaphorical one. It was real, chipped paint, brass handle. Behind it I could hear whispering, like someone praying backwards. I woke up at 3:02 a.m. to the sound of knocking, 3 soft taps coming from above. I froze. I wanted to believe it was pipes, or a raccoon, or anything. But when I looked at the ceiling, I swear I saw a faint glow seeping from the edges of the attic hatch. The next morning, the diary was on the floor beside my bed. Open. New entry. You opened the door. I'm not exaggerating when I say I nearly threw up. I called my aunt again, told her everything. She said, "Listen to me. When she was sick, Mum kept talking to someone we couldn't see. Said he lived through the light. After she died, weird things started happening in the house. Reflections moving on their own. Radios turning on at 3 a.m. We got rid of all her mirrors." She paused. "Where's the diary now?" I told her it was next to me. She said, "Burn it." I couldn't bring myself to. I don't know why. Maybe curiosity, maybe fear that burning it would make things worse. That night I put it in a drawer and slept with the lights on. Around midnight the power went out. My phone flashlight flickered once and died. I sat there in the dark and I swear I heard my grandmother's voice whisper from somewhere close. The The second light means he's listening. I fumbled for matches and lit a candle. The flame bent toward the corner of the room, toward the mirror. The reflection didn't match me. It was my grandmother. Same floral nightgown she was buried in. But she wasn't standing still. She was knocking on the glass 3 times. The sound echoed not from the mirror, but from the attic. I bolted. I slept in my car until sunrise. When I went back inside, everything was normal again. Lights working, mirror ordinary, diary still in the drawer, except now it had another entry. He ran. He always runs. But the light moves faster. The date? October 31st, 2025, Halloween. I decided I was done. I called a friend who works at the university archive department. She deals with old books, preservation, stuff like that. I didn't tell her the supernatural side, just that I found a strange diary and wanted to carbon date the ink. She agreed to take it. That night, I dropped it off at her office. She texted me around 9 p.m. Weird book. Some of the ink is still oxidizing, like it was written recently. At 2 a.m., I got another text from her. Your grandma's name was Margaret, right? I said yes. She replied, then who's writing these? And attached a photo. The diary had another new page. The date, November 1st, 2025. Tomorrow. The entry said, tell her to stop reading. She didn't text again after that. The next morning, I went to the campus. Her office door was locked. The janitor said he saw her leave around midnight, carrying the diary. She hasn't been back since. The police think she's just gone on a trip, maybe burnout. I know better. Because last night I woke up to find the diary back on my kitchen table. Its brass clasp was broken, pages slightly singed, like someone had tried to burn it and failed. And the last page? He gave it back. The door's open again. The date isn't tomorrow anymore. It's November 7th, 2025. That's next week. And underneath the writing, faintly pressed into the paper, like someone traced it with their finger, are 3 little indentations, like someone knocked on the page from underneath. Update. Today. I've decided to follow through on what the diary says. I went into the attic at exactly 3 a.m. The glow was there, soft, blue, like light through water. The wall behind the insulation was warm, pulsing faintly. I touched it before I could stop myself. Something knocked back. I stumbled down the stairs, and the diary fell open on its own. The ink on the latest page began forming right in front of me, letters unfurling like veins. He touched it. It's open now. That's where it ends. I'm leaving this house tonight. The diary's going with me because I can't risk anyone else finding it. I don't know what's behind that wall, but whatever my grandmother started 12 years ago, it isn't finished. And when I drove past the cemetery this morning, I noticed something that made my heart stop. Her grave was open. Some family secrets skip a generation. Others reach out from the grave to pull you in. Our next story begins when a man inherits his father's old camera and discovers it still takes photos, even when the lens cap is on. My dad's old camera still takes pictures, but only of things that aren't there. My father was a photojournalist back when film was king. He used to say, "The camera never lies, people do." He covered everything from protests to floods to war zones, but he rarely kept his own work. He claimed the camera knew too much. When he died last year, I inherited his gear. Most of it was junk, broken lenses, rusted tripods, rolls of undeveloped film that probably expired during the Bush administration, but one camera stood out. A Leica M6, immaculate condition, leather case still supple, a faint smell of tobacco clinging to it. It even had a roll of film already loaded. The first strange thing? The counter read 2, meaning he'd only taken 2 shots. I figured I'd develop the roll, maybe find some old family photos. Dad wasn't sentimental, but maybe he'd caught something from his last years. I took it to a small photography shop that still handles film, one of the last in the city. The guy behind the counter squinted at the Leica like it was an antique from another planet. "Nice camera," he said. "Still works?" "Think so," I said. "Just want the roll developed." He nodded, scribbled a note, told me to come back in a week. 5 days later, I got a call at work. It was the same guy, voice shaky. "Hey, could you come pick these up sooner?" When I arrived, he handed me an envelope like it was radioactive. "Your film," he said, "is unusual." There were only 3 photos, not 2. The first was of my dad's office, and I recognized the layout instantly. Desk, window, bookshelf, but everything was covered in dust, the light grey and heavy, like a storm was coming. The second photo made my stomach turn. It was a close-up of a hand pressed against glass. You could see the veins, the wrinkles. My dad's hand. Behind the glass, though, was a faint reflection, a silhouette standing behind him, featureless but tall. And the third photo? That one was of me. Not a recent version. Me at maybe 8 or 9 years old, sitting on the front steps of our old house. The kicker? I don't remember that picture ever being taken. I asked Mom, and she swore she didn't either. I chalked it up to coincidence. Maybe Dad had some old negatives lying around. Reused a roll without realizing it. But the film stock wasn't Kodak or Fujifilm. The brand was unmarked, just a strip of black with white text that read, "Exposure is memory." Weird branding, I thought. Maybe custom. I kept the camera. I shouldn't have. A few nights later, I was sorting through his belongings when I found his old journal. Mostly travel notes, lens settings, things like try X400 for low light. The last entry, written in his shaky late-life handwriting, said, "Never take the cap off indoors. It knows where you point it." I laughed it off as the ramblings of an old man. He'd been declining before the end, talking to himself, sometimes leaving messages on mirrors. But something about that line, "It knows where you point it," stuck in my head. The next evening, curiosity got the better of me. I loaded a new roll of regular film, turned off the flash, and pointed the Leica at the corner of my living room. Just an empty wall. I clicked the shutter once, then I advanced the film and pointed it at my kitchen. Click. And finally, I turned it towards the hallway leading to my bedroom. The hall was dark except for the dim glow of the nightlight. Click. I dropped the roll off at the same shop the next morning. The clerk didn't even make eye contact this time. "Ready in 2 days," he said. When I came back, he slid the envelope toward me and muttered, "Please don't bring me more of these." At home, I spread the photos on the table. The first one, the living room, looked normal, except for a faint haze in the corner, like fog caught in midair. The second, the kitchen, showed what looked like movement, a blur near the refrigerator, though I was sure I'd been alone. The third photo made my knees go weak. In the hallway, at the very edge of the frame, was a figure, tall, indistinct, bent slightly at the neck, as if it were ducking to avoid the ceiling. Its head was turned toward me, or the camera, and its hand was resting on the wall. I could see fingers, thin and too long, pressing against the plaster. I didn't take another picture for a week. I kept the Leica locked in its case, buried under a stack of old mail. But every night around 3 a.m., I'd wake up to the faint sound of a click, like a camera shutter. I'd get up, check the case, and it would be exactly where I left it. Then one night, the case was open. The Leica was sitting on the floor, pointed toward the bed. The counter had advanced by 1. I called my mum the next day, trying not to sound insane. She listened quietly and said, "You found it, didn't you?" "Found what?" "The Leica," she said. "He told me to destroy it before he died. Said it doesn't take pictures, it remembers them." I asked her what that meant. She said, "When we first married, he used that camera everywhere. But after our first miscarriage, he stopped. He told me he saw something in the photos, something behind us. He said it followed him through the lens." I felt sick. She added, "He used to say the camera doesn't need light, it takes from you instead." That night I decided to test something. I put the lens cap on, pointed it at the mirror, and clicked once. The next morning I developed the film myself using a small darkroom kit I still had from college. The photo was black at first, pure exposure. But as it dried, faint lines began to form. My reflection, except the eyes were wrong, completely black. And in the reflection behind me, just visible through the darkness, was that same tall figure, hand on my shoulder. After that, things in my apartment started changing. My TV would turn on by itself, always static. My phone camera stopped working, black screen every time. The light bulbs flickered whenever I walked by with the Leica. Then the dream started. I'd be back in my dad's office, the one from the first photo. He'd be sitting at his desk, head bowed. I'd try to call out to him, but he wouldn't move. Then he'd lift his camera and point it at me, and I'd wake up to the sound of a shutter. I tried to get rid of it. I left the Leica at a donation center 2 towns over. The next morning, it was sitting on my kitchen table, counter advanced by 1. I called the photo shop. Maybe the clerk knew more than he let on, but the number was disconnected. I drove there. The windows were papered over, closed until further notice sign taped to the door. That night, I found a photo slid under my apartment door. No envelope, no note. Just a picture of me asleep in bed. The timestamp was 3:14 a.m. On the back, written in my dad's handwriting, "Stop developing them. It already knows your face." Update: 1 week later, I moved out of the apartment, stayed with a friend across the city. I didn't bring the Leica, but I can't stop thinking about it. About the way it hummed faintly if you listened close enough. Last night, my friend knocked on my door at 2 a.m. He looked terrified. He said, "Why were you taking pictures in the hallway?" I told him I wasn't. He swore he saw flashes, 3 of them, coming from outside my room. We checked the security camera in the building this morning. Around 2:12 a.m., there's a bright flare of light outside my door, like a camera flash. Then a shape moves past the lens, tall and distorted by the glare. The timestamp flickers, then resets to 0. We pause the footage, and just before it cuts out, there's a still frame. The figure is holding something metallic. A camera. A Leica. I don't know what to do anymore. I've stopped sleeping. My friend's apartment lights flicker now too. Every reflective surface in the place feels wrong. Like the depth is off. Like the shadows have seams. The last straw came this morning. I woke up to find a roll of film on the nightstand, wrapped in a note written on old photo paper. The camera remembers what you forget. I don't own any rolls anymore. I don't think it's a camera at all. I think it's a way back. A hole through time that keeps developing us. I'm leaving the city tonight, but before I go, I'm mailing this story to the paper my dad used to work for. If anyone finds a Leica M6 with a black strap and no serial number, don't use it. Don't sell it. Don't even look through the viewfinder, because if you do, it'll look back. And once it knows your face, it doesn't need the lens anymore. Sometimes memories fade for a reason. Other times they develop themselves. Our next story starts with a man who received an old answering machine in the mail and found that the messages on it were all from people who hadn't died yet. I bought an old answering machine at a yard sale, and the messages are from people who haven't died yet. I'm a sucker for obsolete tech. I don't know why. My apartment looks like a thrift store exploded. CRT TVs, cassette decks, rotary phones. There's something comforting about old electronics, like they hold echoes of people who once touched them. So when I saw an old grey answering machine at a yard sale last month, I couldn't resist. $10. Dusty but intact, tape still inside. The woman running the sale said it belonged to her father, who'd passed away years ago. She said he recorded everything, every little thing. He'd sit and listen to his own messages at night. Drove my mom nuts. I laughed, handed her a 10, and took it home. The machine was a 1990s model, the kind with tiny red LEDs and buttons labeled play, erase, greet, memo. I cleaned it up, plugged it in, and hit play all. The tape clicked, whirred, and hissed. First message, "Hey Dad, it's me. Just wanted to say we landed in Chicago safe. Love you." A normal message except for one thing. The timestamp said October 14th, 2025. That's next week. I assume the clock was off. Old machines drift all the time. I rewound and played again, but it was definitely 14, not 04 or 15. Next message, Mr. Lowell, this is Dr. Hamid from St. Mary's. We got your results. Please call us back right away. I recognized the name. Dr. Hamid is my doctor. He's treating me for high blood pressure, but he never treated anyone named Lowell, and certainly not in 1998. My chest tightened. I took the tape out, flipped it over. Side B had more recordings. I pressed play. "It's Karen. I saw the news. I know what you did. You can't undo it now." The voice was familiar, but I couldn't place it. Then, faintly, under the static, I heard a sound like breathing. I hit stop. When I opened the cassette flap, I noticed something scratched into the tape's clear plastic window. Tiny letters etched by hand. "Do not erase." I laughed nervously, thinking maybe the yard sale lady's dad had a flair for drama. But curiosity won. I spooled the tape back to the start, pressed record and said, "Testing, 1, 2, 3. The machine whirred. I rewound and played it back. Instead of my voice, I heard, "You shouldn't have done that." The tape stopped by itself. My apartment went silent except for the faint buzz of the fridge. I unplugged the machine and shoved it in the closet. I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, I got a voicemail on my cell phone. A woman's voice, shaky. "You bought it, didn't you? The messages don't stop. Don't listen past the 10th one." Then she hung up. No caller ID, no callback number. I spent the day pretending to work, but my mind kept going back to the machine. I decided I'd play exactly 10 messages, then stop, get it out of my system. I plugged it back in. The counter read 00. Message 1, static, faint music in the background, sounded like a radio talk show. Message 2, a woman crying. Message 3, a man whispering numbers. Message 4, my full name, my address. Message 5, silence, then a faint tap, 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 like someone knocking on glass. Message 6, a voice saying, "You have 4 left." I hit stop. The counter blinked and then jumped to 09. I hadn't touched anything. Message 9 started playing automatically. "He's at the door." A loud knock startled me. I jumped so hard I dropped the machine. Someone really was at the door. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Rivera. Sweet old lady. She said, "Are you okay, dear? I heard something fall." I laughed nervously, said I was fine, thanked her, and shut the door. When I looked down, the answering machine was still playing, but the voice was hers. "Are you okay, dear? I heard something fall." Same tone, same inflection, but the timestamp read October 15th, 2025, 2:12 a.m. It was October 8th, and the clock on the machine wasn't even set. That's when I decided to dig deeper. I found the model number, Panasonic 1523B, and searched it online. Nothing unusual except for a single forum post from 2011. If you find one that still has a tape inside, don't play it. It records what's coming, not what's been. The post had no replies. That night, I went to bed early. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to muffled voices from the closet. I pulled the door open. The answering machine's red light was blinking. The tape was moving, recording by itself. I yanked the cord from the wall. The tape kept spinning. I grabbed it, ripped the cassette out, and threw it across the room. It stopped mid-whirl. I sat there shaking, staring at it. The next morning, I couldn't resist. I put the cassette back in and hit play. There was only one new message. "Mr. Lowell, this is St. Mary's Hospital. We're calling about your son. There's been an accident." I don't have a son. The timestamp, October 22nd, 2025, 7:19 p.m. I nearly dropped the machine again. That's next week. I unplugged it for good this time and shoved it in the trunk of my car. Out of sight, out of mind, or so I thought. 2 nights later, I came home from work to find my landline blinking. I don't even give that number out. The message said, "Mr. Lowell, this is Dr. Hamid from St. Mary's Hospital. We got your results. Please call us back right away." The same exact words from the tape. I called the number that had left it. It rang twice. Then a voice picked up and said, "This line isn't active yet." Update, 3 days later. I drove back to the yard sale house. The woman who sold me the machine was gone. A new family had moved in. They said she'd passed away last month. Her name was Karen Lowell. The same Karen from one of the messages. I drove home shaking. I pulled the machine out of the trunk and stared at it. The counter read 11. I hadn't touched it. I pressed play. "Stop driving, he's behind you." I froze, looked in the rearview mirror. Empty street. Then the machine clicked again. Too late. My car died. Every light blinked off. Silence. I sat there for almost an hour waiting for something to happen. Nothing did. Eventually, the engine restarted like normal. But when I looked at the passenger seat, the answering machine wasn't there. It was on the floor, upside down, a new tape loaded. The label read, "Final Messages." I haven't played it yet. I don't know if I ever will. But last night, I got another voicemail on my cell phone. The same voice from the machine. The whisperer. Don't forget to erase this one. Eow. Sometimes the past calls you back. Other times it dials ahead to see if you'll answer. Our next story begins when a man inherits his great-grandfather's pocket watch and discovers it ticks only when someone in the family is about to die.